Hi, Steliana.
Hi, Mambir. How are you?
I'm good. And thank you so much for taking this conversation right now. I know it's quite early in the morning for you.
Yes, I'm based up north of Houston, so early start, 6 a.m., but I'm used to it. No worries about it.
Yay! Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone, to episode 41 of Growth Mindset Conversations. And if you can see us live, you can hear us, you can see us, do let us know in the comment box. It'll be great to know that we are actually live. So, yeah, thank you so much for joining in, Steliana, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us in this conversation. I will wait for a second or a couple of seconds to see if somebody comments so that we know that we are live here. Okay, thank you. Please join me in welcoming our guest today, Steliana One Day Right. Let me introduce Steliana to you. Steliana is a seasoned leadership coach and an OD expert with 20 years of cross regional experience with companies such as Shell, Vodafone, Nike. She's a frequent contributor to Thrive Global and a fellow with Institute of Coaching. Her mission is to help parents, leaders, and organizations to unleash the strength of diversity and inclusion for superior innovation and team performance. She consults and speaks for a diverse range of private and organizational clients, including ING Bank, Shell, Heineken, Microsoft Azure, Renault, Salesforce. And a few years back, she wrote a book named as Mothers as Leaders, and she also runs a community named as Mothers as Leaders. And in 2019, the Women International Network recognized her book with a Global Corporate Award. Thank you, Stelly. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Such a pleasure to be here, Mambir, and always nice to see you. Um, I'm so grateful that life brought us together from two parts of the world
Yes.
through that Mothers as Leaders connection. And yeah, I'm really excited about your questions. Actually, growth mindset
Yay.
really trigger my mind. It's a great
Cool.
opportunity to reflect on it.
Let's have fun. Let's reflect and have fun. And thanks to all of you who are joining us live. And if you're watching this episode as a recording, thanks to you for tuning in also. And this is going to be our last episode of 2022 of Growth Mindset Conversations. So, Stelly, to start with, what is growth mindset for you?
To me, growth mindset is it's like a pair of glasses, like the ones I'm wearing now, because it's very early here. Um, it is a pair of glasses through which you can see the world, and you can
Mm-hmm.
look at any situation, and you can see it's great to see the glass half full. You know the famous saying, seeing the glass half full. I think when you have a growth mindset lens, you're able to enjoy the glass half full, but you'll get more energized by the opportunity, the thing that is empty. And that's what for me growth mindset is. It's not about
Mm-hmm.
not being satisfied with the fact that the glass is not full, but thinking,
Yeah.
yay, I can do more. And with that mindset, anything you have, anything that comes your way, and we talked about a couple of things earlier, anything can be turned into an opportunity. Even if it's a
Yep.
challenge, you can take the benefit from it.
Yeah.
And I mean, probably most of you heard about that Carol Dweck's book Mindset, and I call it the mother of a growth mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I appreciate, I reread the book again recently, and I realized that even if you think you got it in one area of your life, it's not forever. And that was my new
Mm-hmm.
insight of 2022. You could have a growth
Yeah.
mindset about your work, but you could have a fixed mindset about certain
Mm-hmm.
aspects of your life or family. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
life throws things at you. I mean, I was telling you earlier, I moved recently from the Netherlands to US, and I realized last year I had a bit of a fixed mindset about what opportunities were there for me. And with all my coaching and training, it's only when you feel it on your skin that you realize you're being tested. It took me a few months to see not just the disadvantages of doing business abroad and losing my network from Europe, moving to that, but really seeing all the opportunities.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and that the big aha came. You don't have it forever. Growth mindset. is important, but you need to be aware. You might lose your glasses from time to time.
Yeah, yeah. And I have seen your transition from Netherlands to US, and yeah, so that has been really, I think, a lot of learning for you. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Your glass metaphor and the half full metaphor, I think they are very very powerful. So let's move on to the topic for today, which is authenticity and leadership. And there has been a lot of buzz recently for a few years on authentic leadership for maybe past few years. So why authentic leadership? What is actually authentic leadership? I mean, what happens to me as a leader when I become authentic? A lot of questions leaders have, and it has been really really glamorized also in some way, authentic leadership. So what is authenticity in leadership? How do you define that?
Well, if we get to the definition, I guess authentic means real, to be as real as the original. But the question I keep asking myself through my work as well is, yeah, what is real, and does it mean that when when you are that yourself, the true self, are you done forever? We are constant product. We are never a finished product. Even at the age of 80,
Mm-hmm.
we can still learn. I actually have friends at age of if 84 who are still learning. Um, it doesn't mean that you have to tell to your boss, that's who I am, I can't change. I got feedback from my peers. I haven't actually. I thought of maybe better to give an example, because there's a lot of I use a lot of fancy words here, but I'll give an example of a friend of mine, a manager, who confided into me that although he's been promoted to a managerial role, um, a high performer, delivered really well for his team, brought the money in, business development, good stuff. But ultimately, he got feedback from his boss that he should do more for the leadership team. So, in other
Mm-hmm.
words, he should be more of a team player in his boss leadership team. And this friend of mine says, I have an issue with that. Like, I'm doing my stuff. I'm good team leader. I don't have that's not who I am. I'm not like the one who's going to be a follower and contributor. He really struggled with the idea of changing who he is. He perceived it as a way of changing his true self. And for a moment, I felt selfish, to be honest. I thought, no, it's easy, it's important for other people. Why wouldn't you do it? But that's where the dilemma lies, because authenticity is really asking yourself why. Why is it? Why do I have difficulty with really changing and adapting and learning in this area? And for him, it was deeper. It was about the values. And this is where I go with authenticity in leadership. It goes back to staying true to who you are, being willing to learn. But when you're struggling changing or learning or in a certain direction, to know why. What is that value that is behind it? And what is the consequence that you're afraid of? This individual, was afraid that he won't have enough time for his team, that he would be put in a situation to prioritize contributing and devoting his energy and his time to the leadership team to impress his boss. He said, to me it seems like I'm prioritizing myself, like promoting myself upwards to be a
Yeah.
team leader versus doing stuff for my people. So it was something deeper there than you just don't want to change yourself. It's
Mm-hmm.
To sum it up, I would say it's staying true to yourself, but also being willing to ask the question, why? Why do I want to stretch? Why do I want to get out of my comfort zone? Or why?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and there is fine line, right? These areas cannot be black and white. There are, grays on it. So staying true to your values is a great thing, but staying true or staying deeper into your existing habits may not be a good thing. So you have to
Mm,
challenge that, and that could be your comfort zone. So again, awareness of comfort zone is another thing, and that's where I think the whole episode or whole connotation of self awareness is very very important, when we talk about authenticity in leadership. So with that, I feel that authenticity is important because you are able to have greater relationship. People see you as a human being rather than being a persona which you might have taken over, over copying your boss or somebody else. So what do you think, why is authenticity important in today's world in a leadership role?
Well, it's ultimately important because we're leading people. Yeah, we're not
Mm-hmm.
leading machines, to your point. And when you are a leader, and I can tell any example from the CEO of a company who has a media and the markets watching his actions every moment, to the team leader of a fireman department, to the single mom with teenagers at home. But when you get the title, the boss, like it or not, people will watch you. They will watch what you observe, what you're doing, rather than what you're saying. Your actions will
Mm-hmm.
be interpreted, there will be a story
Yeah.
about yourself. And there is a moment that you need to understand. You can say, this is the part I'm doing, it's part of my job. Obviously, I don't like it as a person, but ultimately, unless you're willing to have a tough conversation with yourself about where you want to compromise in your behavior, and the fact that you need to be ultimately consistent and aligned with your values. If you feel like you can't hold the party line, it will be very difficult. Talking about why is it
Yeah.
important, when I was at Shell, I mean, it was impossible to train leaders on every aspect of decision making and leadership, and these were people that were making decisions impacting millions of other people's safety. It wasn't just about the 10 people and their salaries. If you are a manager of a refinery or an asset, you're dealing with important stuff. Safety matters. So they
Yeah.
need to be able to have that compass to make the right decision in the right moment, and most importantly, live with that. Because I feel that's famous example, Prime Minister of England, right? Unless you're willing to live with the consequences of your talk, right? Lockdown is important, but why are you having a party, right? That's the famous one. Unless you're willing to walk the talk, people will not follow you. You can have a nice speech, you can have a wonderful persona and branding.
Yeah.
People will pick up on the same, you've done a party during lockdown. Or if you're a parent, why are you telling me not to smoke, mom, while you're smoking?
Yeah, yeah, I understand. So authenticity also brings a lot of vulnerability, right? That may scare leaders. What could be the downside of being authentic? Or, in other words, how can leaders be ready to face this downside and fears of vulnerability?
I'll be I'll be honest with you. I had a good conversation actually with a friend of mine the other day when I did a speech about being true to yourself. She said, "Steli, this vulnerability is not for everyone," and I will put it out there. It's tough and it's scary,
Yeah,
um,
it is
and
scary.
it is scary. And I think this is where, again, self awareness is key. Because
Mm-hmm.
unless you are aware of what is your level one, level two, level three, level four comfort zone, and level four is don't go there. Those stuff, maybe you are able to share it with your mom and there will be tears in your eyes. So, really understand how far you can go. And not everybody has the same bar. Um, Even with that, even with being vulnerable, authentic, you need to be yourself. And I find that knowing that borders, that boundary is important, but the value
Yeah,
is so important. That for me, I went further and further. Has been my experience in my job. I made a mission to go on the stage and share my life story. And sometimes I would have tears because I talk about interviewing my mom for the book. Uh, but I've done it a few times. I know how it feels. It is scary, but even with that,
yeah,
it comes with a bit of practice.
yeah,
And the other bit I preached, I would say, or I told the managers when I was working in business was selective vulnerability. And I will put it out there for the one in business. And I have a wonderful anecdote about that. Selective vulnerability. We had a VP finance presenting to a staff council, trade union, I just use that term. And I was liaison. And he said casually that at some point, oh yeah, the numbers might not add up. I'm a high level person. And when I heard that, I just realized that the trust in the room dropped. Why? Because people expected him. He was the accountant in the room. We didn't care if he had 100 people reporting to him to look at the numbers. It was not the right item to be vulnerable in that way. He lost credibility. So again, selective vulnerability. And there's some things you might share with the best friend, some things you could share with your team, some things you could share with the audience. So again, practice your borders.
Yeah, yeah. So with that, I mean, a lot of ideas popping up in my head, that how that people should be vulnerable. You need to really see that, what is the context here? What is the context of authenticity and how much of you want to share? It doesn't mean that, sharing your personal stories and, your sad stories or something like that. But what are few ideas you can share that, leaders can be vulnerable, can be authentic in the right way, and can also maybe motivate their teams to be authentic?
Indeed, indeed. And that's the kind of authenticity we want. It's not per se the motivational speaker being on a stage and crying and have all the audience crying with him because he shared a very personal story. I'm going high. It's really more scary to be sharing what you're afraid of with your best friends, with the people who know you. I found actually the most scary thing was when I had to present to do my book launch, and my kids were in the room in the first row, and my husband and my mother-in-law. These people know me. They see me every day in the kitchen. They see what I say. My kids see me when I'm angry, when I'm happy. My colleagues were there from Shell, and I found that was the scariest moment for me, because creating that environment of people that really know you, you can't pretend, right? They've seen you, you have that experience. But when you build that trust with that amount of people, they will respond back with trust. So it's not just about you here, it's about creating an environment for other people to open up and to learn.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
of course, in business, again, going back to growth mindset, if you don't create psychological safety to talk about mistakes, if you don't practice what you preach, tell about your failures, and with blameless discernment, not attaching blame, say what you've learned, then the people in your team will do the same. But
absolutely.
you need to do it every day. Again, it's not like
Yeah,
one motivational speech. It's every day in the coffee room. You can't just be nice in a team meeting and then go to the coffee room and then just say the certain things to the people who made a mistake. you, you need to walk the talk in the
yeah,
meeting,
yeah,
the coffee shop.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm understanding, and I think we have all seen as part of working with leaders that when leaders are authentic, they are vulnerable once in a while. They also create, that is one solid way of creating psychological safety, which leaders do report that they struggle to create its psychological safety. I think that conversation, that authentic conversations, they're the best way to create ways to create psychological safety. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that point. Yeah. So we have a question that, how you will deal with the stress generated with growth mindset.
Sorry, say that again. How do you?
I am going to. How will you deal with the stress generated with growth mindset?
A great question. Great question. Thank you, Dr. Gourmet. So there is stress. So I'm great. I'm glad you brought that up. I mentioned earlier about me moving in, moving to the States, and despite all the theories, all the knowledge about growth mindset and learning from failures and getting out of a comfort zone, it was scary. So I can tell you what I what I did, and this is real life story. I think what helped me was uh, Getting a support structure, physical support structure, going back to basics. I feel like stress is related a lot to your body, and not trying to rationalize first thing, because you're a coach and you're a person relying on emotion, on your intelligence. You try to find ways and convince yourself why you shouldn't be stressed and you should have a growth mindset, of course, because you know this, you're a coach. That doesn't work. I tried. What does work is just being kind to yourself and saying, in my case was, Steli, you are a person too, give yourself a break. And find things that charge your energy. In my case was literally going back to basics. Eat well, walk every day, look at the opportunities who come again from the glass half full. Look at the opportunity. Being in the States, meet people. Yes, of course, I lost all my family. I miss them. I could stay in my room and cry because I don't see them. But then I have all these other people I can meet. So just going out there, meeting new people, uh, doing what, you know, ex- having an explorer mindset about the new environment. In my
Mhm.
instance was joining a club, a gym. I mean, doing the stuff I wouldn't do in my previous situation because I was afraid of the labels people would put. It gives a lot of freedom when you're out of your comfort zone. There's no boundaries. There's no expectation.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
to me, it was really about body awareness, exploring, being out there, and almost become a child. Almost look at it as, I'm a child in a new playground, in a new school. This is a new situation. How would a child energize themselves?
Yeah, yeah. Don't judge yourself too much and have a support system. Ask when you need. I think those are the things, which really, really help. Make a routine or not routine, but doing something which is going to recharge you is really, really important. So, thank you so much, Sally, for sharing these valuable insights on the topic. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time.
You're welcome, Mandir.
And thank you everyone for joining us today, for joining this discussion, participating. Thank you so much. And this was our last episode of Growth Mindset Conversations for this year. I'm looking forward to seeing you again in the new year with the new stuff. Keep learning, keep reflecting, keep acting, and keep on growing. Thank you so much. All the very best. Bye, Steli. Thank you.
Bye, Manbir.